Ew, what's wrong with you? That's right, you'll just be driving down the highway in the Miata having a good old time, and out of nowhere it just decides to take a nice warm pee on your shoe. You guys that have had it happen before know exactly what I'm talking about. My name's Greg Peters, and on Car Passion today I'm going to be showing you how to take this scary sounding job, making it as easy as possible. I'll be replacing a heater core. Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and today I'm going to show you how to oh wait, hold on, wrong channel. What's going on everybody? It's your boy Greg Peters with the Car Passion channel, and today I will be replacing the heater core on this 1999 Miata NB. Now this process will be pretty much the same for all Miatas 1990 to 2005, with a couple small differences that I'll get into in just a second. Now this job can be done with just simple hand tools as seen here, and the only other thing you'll need are some coolant and a heater core kit, which will come with a heater core and a bag of sticky foam and clamps and other accessories that you might need. Now, fun fact, this is an NB heater core, but if you're doing this on an NA, it will also fit in your NA, and you might want to do that. The only additional thing you'll need is a set of NB aluminum hard pipes that connect the heater core hoses to the heater core. Now in the NA, the pipes are made out of copper and they crack easily, which can lead to leaking all over your shoe. But the NB heater core pipes being aluminum, they're a lot more stout, and theoretically, it should make this process easier to do with the dashboard in. Now I did have quite a bit of trouble with this method, and I ended up having to do it a different way, which still left the dashboard in, but I'm gonna share with you everything that I learned here so you can make the best decision for what you wanna do on your car. I imagine this is like what people who drive normal sized cars think of when they hear Miata parts, except they envision this is like a Miata radiator. Like, aw, you need a new radiator, little guy? It's okay, I won't disrespect you like that. I know you take normal sized parts too. Alright, so let's get this party started. The first thing you need to do is remove the driver's seat. We're going to try to generate as much room as possible because this is going to be your home for the next few hours or possibly the next few days. So to get the seat out, you just need to remove 4 14mm bolts, and bam, weight reduction, boys! Next step is to drain your coolant. Now I already had the coolant drained on this car because I was doing something else to it, so I don't have the footage from that, but here is some footage of me draining the coolant from another one of my cars. It's very easy. Just loosen the petcock on the bottom of the radiator until coolant comes out. Now if you use a clean container and your coolant looks healthy, you can reuse it, or if it looks nasty, you probably want to put new coolant in your motor. Now you can remove the heater core hoses. This is also a great time to replace those hoses, especially because there's a good chance they're so stuck on there you'll want to cut them off. And you want to be particularly careful if you're doing this on an NA, because as I mentioned before, these hard pipes coming through the firewall are very fragile, and if you crush them like this, you're probably going to end up with some leaking and have to replace them and essentially do this whole job again. Let me go ahead and switch over to the lens, which I literally used to photograph the moon to give you guys a nice close-up and clear shot behind the head of the engine. And as you can see here, the factory spring clamps are very easy to use. Once you get that back, you might be able to pull the hose off, or in my case, I had to cut it off because it was very stuck and I didn't want to bend that hard pipe back there. Welcome to your new bed. Now you might want to throw some blankets or some foam padding in here because you're gonna be laying down here for a while. First step here is to grab your Phillips head screwdriver and remove the cover panel that goes underneath the steering wheel. Next thing we're gonna do is practice safety and disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. One of the main reasons we're doing this is because we will be unplugging some electrical connectors while we do this job, and it's just generally safe practice to depower the car when you're working on any part of the electrical system. Alright, now we are up under the dash, and behind this cover right here is your heater core. Now we've got some things in the way that we'll have to move and relocate, but the first thing you can do here is remove the heater core cover and kind of get that out of the way. You're going to want a stubby Phillips head for this, and there's just 2 screws that hold it in. Now grab your needle nose pliers and do your best to pull this harness strap off of the cover. there's a good chance you're going to break it. You just want to make sure when everything does go back together that you don't have any loose harnesses that are going to get in the way of your feet when you're doing those mad JDM heel-toe downshifts. And voila, there is the heater core and the hard pipes. That is what we're going to be replacing today. That is what is leaking on this NB Miata. Next thing you want to do to generate some much needed working space is unplug all of these plugs here. I believe there are 5 of them. You don't have to worry about remembering which one goes where because every single one is a different shape. So as long as you played that game as a kid where you have to put the little yellow shapes into the red ball, then you'll be able to figure out how to plug all these back in later. Now, after you remove one of the heater core hoses, there's a trick where you blow into the one that's left and it will expel a bunch of the coolant out of the other one. In this case, the coolant had already leaked all inside of the car, so that's why I didn't really show that process. But you still probably want to put some rags down to protect your carpet from some coolant that may come out when you disconnect the hard pipes from the heater core. Now, this is one part that's going to be a little bit different on the NA versus the NB. The NB has 2 fully disconnectable hard pipes, which is the reason that if you have an NA, you might want to try installing an NB heater core, because when you go to put everything back together, the hard pipes are completely separate from the heater core, where the NA, it's got a hard pipe that's fully brazed or welded or whatever it's called into the heater core, and it makes it difficult, possibly impossible, to get the heater core in with the dash in. So if you're doing this with an NA, the way to get this out is to use one of those circular or a Dremel, some kind of cutting wheel to cut that fixed hard pipe, and then you'll be able to extract the heater core. I mean, you're not going to be reusing it anyway, so there's no reason to save that hard pipe. With the NB, however, it uses these miniature V-band clamps, basically is what they are. They're a little Phillips head, and the metal is kind of soft on these things, so you want to use your Phillips head and press pretty hard as you're turning it to get those cracked loose. You might even want to use a little bit of penetrant like PB Blaster or something like that. And then once you get the screws loose, you can completely remove those V-band clamps. You do need to unthread 1 Phillips head screw on each of the hard pipe securing straps up on top, and that's going to let the hard pipes freely move around. Now, with a little bit of force and wiggling around, you will dislodge the hard pipes from the heater core. And again, if you're doing this on an NB, you do need to make sure you don't bend or damage these hard pipes because you will be reusing them. But since they're aluminum, they're very stout, and you'd have to push pretty hard to damage one of these things. And boom, once you get that second one out, the heater core will be completely free. You just gotta give it a little wiggle, and it will slide all the way out, and you're done. Your heater core's out. It's that easy. Now, I don't know if it was the heater core itself that failed, or possibly this disgusting O-ring that started leaking. In fact, it's possible that you could just replace these O-rings and get away with this fix for very, very cheap. But in my opinion, if you're in this deep and you're doing this job, it is best to just replace the heater core. So this is what it looks like when I pulled it out. First thing you have to do is just get some kind of picking tool and remove the old O-ring, and you're still left with quite a crusty mess here, which you'll want to clean up before putting a new O-ring on. Now I have this nice metal bristled brush which will take off most of this buildup and corrosion. You can also use some lighter grade sandpaper, like maybe a 600 grit or something like that. After you get your surface all cleaned up and your brand new O-ring installed, which will be included with your heater core kit, it'll look something like this, which is ready for installation into the new heater core. Now, some of you guys might be asking at this point, well, instead of going through all this work, what if I just delete the heater core, loop the lines, and then I never have to worry about leaking, and God, that's way easier than doing this whole job. Well, yeah, you could do that. I, for one, love my heater, but a side benefit from having a heater core is it does actually act like a miniature radiator, which helps cool some of that coolant. So it's a good idea to leave it in the car. And there's that crispy old O-ring that I just removed from the hard pipe compared to what a brand new O-ring looks like. Obviously that thing's gonna provide a little bit better seal. Now, as you can see, our new heater core is kind of naked, so there's a little bit of prep we have to do. First thing we're gonna do is take our naked heater core and lube up its holes. That's gonna let the hard pipes just ram right in there, no problem. You can go ahead and give those hard pipes a test fit, see that they actually get all the way seated in there, and kind of get an idea of what it looks like when they're seated. So when you're upside down, stuffed in the car, you kind of know what you're looking for as far as the hard pipe alignment as you're trying to get those clamps on. Now it's time to dress your heater core up and make it feel pretty. Now, of course, this step is not just about the look. The foam serves two main surfaces. One thing is you don't want that aluminum sitting on the hard plastic and vibrating, which could cause damage or just annoying sounds. And the other thing is the foam is going to help create an air seal around the heater core. So especially when you have your heater on and the fans are pushing air, the air is not going around the heater core, it is going through it. It's the same concept with putting ducting in your radiator. You're trying to control that airflow, making sure it actually all goes through the radiator to carry that heat. It's the same principle here. You want the cool air from outside to go through the heater core, and you want to transfer as much energy into that air as possible. Energy equals heat. That heat is going to come into your cabin and keep you nice and toasty during the winter. Just use the old heater core as an example, and you can just completely replicate all the old foam wrappings until it looks roughly the same. It's not rocket science, you just want there to be some kind of foam layer there. Now, my kit also came with brand new clamps. It's a good idea as well to kind of play with these things and get a feel for what they do when they lock into place, actually install those hard pipes on the bench. These things are a lot trickier than they look, and as you'll see in a couple minutes, they were my absolute demise in trying to complete this job, quote, the easy way. But if you want to do it this way, your best bet is just to mess around with them. So this way you're familiar going in and you're not trying to figure these clamps out while you're upside down stuffed in the car. Now we'll start attempting to do everything in the reverse order that we did it when we removed it all, starting with installing the hard pipes back into the car. To me, it was easiest to try to install them with these firewall grommets in. They kind of hold the hard pipes in place. And then inside the car, you can kind of prop them up out of the way while you slide this heater core back in. There's really not too much in the way because we unplugged all those plugs. So you might just kind of have to push those up a little bit, and then the heater core will slide right back into place the way it came out. Now, this is really the make or break part of this entire job. It seems simple enough to just take those hard pipes and plug them back into the heater core and install those clamps and tighten them down. And I don't know if it's because this is an aftermarket heater core and maybe the size of those inlets aren't 100% perfect, or maybe the O-rings that the kit came with weren't quite the right size just by a little bit, but something made this step extremely difficult for me, and I struggled with it for, I kid you not, 3 days. In and out of the car, and the hard pipes over and over and over, I tried, and I'd get the clamps tightened down, and I'd realize that the clamp just wasn't quite lined up, or the heater pipe wasn't perfectly aligned, and you have to have those flanges meeting each other and the clamps all the way tightened down in order for this to make a perfect seal. And guys, I really gave it my best effort on this. And right here, I read online, instead of putting the O-rings on the hard pipes, I should be putting the O-rings inside the heater core and then sliding the hard pipes into the O-rings. And I was like, oh, brilliant, dude. This is going to be the thing that solves all my problems. And what this resulted in was the hard pipes just pushed the O-rings inside the heater core. And there was no way for me to tell after the pipe went in if it had pinched one of the O-rings or if everything was good, other than filling the car up with coolant and seeing if it leaked. But I'm not really about that life. So there's mixed reviews on whether you should put the O-rings inside the heater core or leave them on the hard pipes. People say they have done it both ways. Personally, I recommend putting the O-rings on the hard pipes because it is impossible to pinch those O-rings if you install the hard pipes that way. I mean, I was in that car for an hour to an hour and a half at a time straight for 3 days in a row, just trying to get these pipes to hook up. And I could do it out of the car because I could use my weight to push the pipes into the heater core, and I could see, there was good lighting, and so I knew it was possible, which made this even more frustrating. And I just struggled and struggled and struggled. You guys might be able to get this step. I know people have done it, or you guys might be like me, where after day 3, you still cannot get those pipes in. And if you guys get to this point, installing your heater core or really doing any job in general, all you can really do is question your existence, question the universe around you, question every decision and event that's led up to this very moment in your life. Question if you ever should have started working on cars in the first place. You know, maybe they're just not for you. How did you end up here, and how have others done this exact job? And when all else fails, there's probably something you can cut in half to make this job work. Alright, plan B, here we go. The first step to plan B is getting these hard pipes installed and fully secured in the heater core. And the next step here is to cut the pipes in half. Yes, literally cut both of the pipes in half. No, I am not rage quitting here. This is actually a widely used technique for installing heater cores in Miatas. After you cut the pipes, it will be quite a bit more difficult to install them at the sealed coupling, so you want to install them first and then make these cuts. And you don't just want to make them anywhere. Try to get them as close to how I show them in this video as possible. You want to do it on a nice straight section of pipe and a section that's very accessible from underneath the dash when you're in the car. And the reason we're going to do this is because we are actually going to add a short section of heater core hose and a couple clamps to hold these pipes together. Now it's going to be extremely easy to install this heater core, and I can already hear it in the comments. Oh, you've added leaking points. You've added failure points to the system. Here's something to think about. A very short section of heater core hose that is held in by high quality stainless steel worm gear clamps is not something that is likely to leak. The pipes being butted up against each other and being clamped with quality clamps, it's not something that's going to experience so much pressure that it's going to blow apart or that it's likely to leak. And if you do mess this up and there is a small leak, this area of the hard pipe is very accessible and you'll be able to fix your issue. Now, of course, I wouldn't be showing you guys this technique if it wasn't successful at the end of the video. And again, it is your car. If you want to pull your dash to do this procedure, you're more than welcome to, but I just wanted to show that there is another way to do it without having to pull the dash, and this is it. Now, take your newly modified heater core and you're going to slide it back into place, this time with the little nubs of the lower pipes installed and clamped in, and with the short section of heater core. Now make sure that that hose you use is for coolant system, and it's not vacuum line, it's not anything else. The coolant system hoses have the threading inside to deal with the pressure so you don't get any sort of expansion and failure that way. Once the heater core is in, you will be able to easily install your hard pipes and just slip the ends into the rubber hose and tighten down the worm gear clamps. Now, I will say it is pretty important to use the higher quality worm gear clamps here. A good quality worm gear clamp, you will not be able to strip it just by using your hand and a screwdriver. The cheap ones, if you twist that little screw hard enough, you'll be able to strip it, and that is not the kind you want to use in a situation like this. The clamping force is really important here, so get yourself a good quality set of these things. All right, so now the heater core is in place. Don't forget to tighten down the little straps that hold down the hard lines. And the next thing you will do here is plug back in all of those plugs. Once again, each one is a different shape. There's no way to plug the wrong plug into the wrong connector. So get all those things plugged back in so the car will start. Next step here is to install the heater core hoses. You can just put the factory spring clamps back in place first before you put the hoses on. The factory spring clamps work great. I've never had one leak. I don't know how they do it. It's an engineering marvel to me. The heater core hoses only fit one way. The hard pipe that's closest to the engine will be the one that hooks up behind the head, and the hard pipe that goes underneath the exhaust manifold hooks up to the hard pipe that is closest to the brake booster, as shown right here. Now, you can fill the car back up with coolant, attempting not to spill, of course. And then after the radiator is full, go ahead and leave the cap off and start it up. And pretend like you didn't forget to reconnect the battery. Could just edit that out, of course. Reconnect your negative battery terminal, then start the car with the radiator cap off. And the car is gonna drink up some of that coolant. And as the coolant level lowers in the radiator, just be ready to add coolant until the car does not take up anymore. Now after you put the radiator cap back on, let that thing come up to operating temperature, get under there and inspect for any leaks. Once you see that there are no leaks, you can put it back together. Now I like to take it a step further and take the car out and absolutely rip it, and I try to put some kind of rip into all my videos for you guys. So I know it's just a stock NB, but I think it still sounds pretty good, and it's going to be fun to take for a rip. You know, the good thing about having a stock engine is you can essentially floor it everywhere. So let's take this thing out for a little bit of fun, really get the temperature up there. I forgot how slow stock Miatas are, goodness gracious. So I'm out driving the car, just minding my own business, taking it for a rip, and all of a sudden, somehow, as it always happens on the channel, I end up on the moon. And I get passed by a space lancer full of Kerbals. So I don't know if this thing was like a base Lancer or an Evolution. Obviously if it was an Evo, it was stock, but as I dropped it into 5th gear here, it was clear that I was not going to be reeling this guy in, but I knew eventually there would be a turn. Oh, keep in mind, I'm on stock 20-year-old suspension and all-season tires, so I'm not going to be pulling any miracles here, but this was just a fun little rip to take the car on. This video just goes to show I'm not here to sugarcoat everything. Sometimes working on cars is hard. Sometimes seemingly simple tasks are very difficult and take forever. Just getting one stupid bolt to line up can be just incredibly frustrating. So if you hit a wall on your project, whatever you're working on, what helps me the most is just putting it down for the day, sleeping on it, coming back the next day. You're gonna be coming into that job with no frustration, you're gonna have a clear mind, and a lot of times you just get it. When I was having problems with the 6-speed lining up with the twin disc, I did that like 3 or 4 days in a row. I would just come back out to it, okay, let's just get this done. When you start getting frustrated, you get worse at whatever you're working on. So if you did learn something, if you did enjoy this video, smash that like button, subscribe if you are new, 100K baby, still super stoked. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.